Crystal Mazzola Wood believes in strategies for rebuilding life after trauma. She's got quite a story to tell. She is an author and licensed marriage and family therapist. Her most recent book has what I think is such a great title, Setting Boundaries, 100 Ways to Protect Yourself, Strengthen Your Relationships, and Build the Life You Want Starting Now. What a promise that title delivers. Her other books are The Codependency Recovery Plan, a 5-step guide to understand, accept, and break free from the codependent cycle. And then she added the Codependency Workbook, Simple Practices for Developing and Maintaining Your Independence. She also hosts her blog called Confidently Authentic to help people experience greater self-love and deeper intimacy with others. Congratulations for these amazing books, as well as the publishing of your article in Authority magazine titled Strategies for Rebuilding Life After Trauma. Crystal, that's an amazing body of work that brings you up to today. Normally, I would expect this much amazing wisdom from someone who grew up in a stable home and had lots of positive self-esteem from a young age, but that wasn't your experience. Would you share a bit about your early years?
Yes, absolutely, Nancy. And thank you for such a lovely intro. So yes, I did not have a stable upbringing. My complicated history really began from birth. I was born to a teen mom who didn't have skills, born into poverty. Um, there was a very contentious, violent relationship that she had with my biological father, who was not a part of my life growing up, which created its own wounds for me. She thought she was doing a good job by marrying my ex-stepfather when I was about 4. But unfortunately, he was a man with a lot of mental health and addiction issues himself. And I always kind of felt like maybe it would have been better if it had just been a single mom situation. um, and that's the complicated thing too, is even as I say that, he brought good things into my life and I had positive memories and experiences with him. And yet he was very, abusive to me when I was growing up, in many ways. And, from that experience, it really led a complicated feeling too, where it's like someone who can bring so much joy into your life can also bring so much pain, which also kind of led to my codependency path. But,
Yeah.
there was just a lot of, secrecy in my family growing up. There was a lot of expectation that, my grandma always said, you don't air your dirty laundry in public. So I remember being a very high performing student, always in like the top like cohorts. And while I love learning and academics, that's something that genuinely is a passion of mine. I also remember feeling this pressure that no one could know about what was going on at home.
Yes.
And so that was like little snapshot of what I experienced.
Well, you narrowed it down to just a few minute description, but in your article, you mentioned eventually beginning to think suicidal thoughts. What kept you from committing suicide?
Yeah, so yes, my first suicidal thoughts emerged when I was 11. And I will say that I always have had a strong sense of spirituality. I was raised Catholic and some of those things didn't resonate with me, but I always believed that there was something else. And I always believed that I was here for a reason. And that if I died by suicide, that I wouldn't be living into this purpose that I was clearly born for, even though I didn't know what it was when I was very young. And at the same time, I also, my 20s were my darkest time by far, where I struggled with very toxic relationships, my own substance abuse issues, lots of disordered eating of my own. And in all of those dark periods, I mean, I would, seriously contemplate suicide for hours most days of the week.
Mm.
And it brings me a lot of sadness to remember what it
Yes.
was like for me. But I remember laying in bed, in the darkness, and I would just tell myself, there's going to be happy experiences in your life. there's going to be things worth living for. And
Yes.
you just have to hold on for that happiness. And I would imagine finally finding someone where I felt safe and I had belonging and having a family. I didn't really want kids, but having a family with someone where I finally felt what I never had experienced before. And I just knew I needed to hang on. And so that's why.
It sounds like you had some divine intervention that planted that seed of hope that kept you hoping. I'm so grateful that you had that. It gives me goosebumps. You listed 5 choices that helped you heal, and the first choice was a decision to heal. And I find that thread running throughout the interviews I've been doing on this topic, that some people, and you were one of them, that made the decision to keep moving forward and seeking healing. Eventually, you were able to accept that the abuse you received was never a reflection of your worth. How did it feel to finally get that clear, to deeply believe that?
Oh, it was amazing. I always say change happens really slowly and then all at once. So I was planting seeds with my own therapy, my own kind of like spiritual work, personal development work, like with books. And so one day though, I remember it's like almost like the lights turned on and I was like, wait, hurt people hurt people. Like my ex-stepfather had and my mom and my grandma, they had so much of their own trauma and, like I'll just simplify it there. And of course they hurt me. That was all they knew. And I finally realized that the only reason I had been abused was because I had been in their vicinity, not because it had anything to do with my worth, that they would have abused any human being that had
Yeah,
come into their experience.
because that was all they had to give.
Exactly. That's all they knew. And so it was like the lights turned on. And it took me a long time to kind of integrate that knowing into my life and have my choices reflect that truth that it wasn't personal. I wasn't ever not good enough. I always have been lovable and worthy. But I remember it as the lights turned on.
Thank God for lights turning on, right?
Absolutely.
In your early adult life, how could you have chosen any except dysfunctional relationships? I mean, the only model you had were dysfunctional, abusive relationships. So, how in the world could you have chosen anything different?
I completely agree, Nancy. I think that level of compassion for yourself is something I hope for everyone to finally get to this place of like, no matter how you've hurt yourself or co-created patterns or replicated what hurt you, how could you have done any differently?
Right. I believe we all are doing the best we can do at any given point in time, and we can only do better when we know better.
Oh, absolutely.
You mentioned reclaiming your spiritual connection, and sometimes through animals. Tell us about Princess Kitty and the role she played in your healing.
Oh, so that was kind of where a lot of wounding happened, actually, was being raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school growing up and all of that. I remember asking a priest, do animals go to heaven? And I've heard now that different priests will give different answers, but the priest I asked when I was 8 years old told me absolutely not. And I couldn't understand how animals who are so unconditionally loving and pure could not go to heaven. And so that kind of, that was one of the reasons I kind of pulled away from the church. But, I always have believed in something. And so eventually, like my relationship with Princess Kitty, I really felt like it was a gift from God or the universe. And there was such a deep understanding between our souls. Like I had never felt so loved and seen by another being up until that point. And so it was very spiritual. I think that love and connection are spiritual unto themselves. I think sometimes that word can get a little like have some connotations to it that can be heavy for people, but honestly just love, connection, intimacy, belonging, that's spiritual.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I disagree with your priest. The Bible says that God even knows when a sparrow dies.
Oh, lovely.
Why wouldn't he honor the love that animals give us? You also cite the importance of a non-judgmental friend, and you found this friend at the age of 11, and she's still your friend. That's so unusual and such a gift. So tell me a little bit about that friendship and the role it played as you were healing.
Absolutely. So, Amy's still my best friend, and it's amazing to have been best friends for the majority of our lives. And I always say that she's the first person who taught me what a healthy relationship looked like.
Mm,
I, I, I mean, so many things she has witnessed, but her sister had once recorded phone calls of us when we were about 13. And I just talked incessantly, and she just listened and accepted me and provided space for me.
yes.
And I have always felt so loved and wanted by her. I always knew too, like, don't die by suicide because you don't want to hurt Amy like that. And so that was always so beautiful. And it's been really amazing to have also healed to the point where now I can be more of a support to her when she was really now it feels a lot more equitable in how we support one another, when really she kind of provided the stable foundation for me in a way that you would imagine a parent would when I was growing up.
You say that you currently have a loving, non-judgmental husband as well. Tell us a little bit about how this marriage is different than what you grew up with.
Yes. So he's also my best friend. I now have two best friends.
Yeah, right.
And I remember when we were first dating, he told me that, everyone should be friends with their partner first and foremost. And I told him that that was always I've heard that, but that was a foreign concept for me. Your partner, and it wasn't even a partner, but the person that you were romantically entwined with, from my experiences growing up, was a source of suffering and animosity. And there was a lot of conflict between the two of you. And maybe there might be some fun, but it was never going to be a source of friendship, belonging, safety. But through our relationship, I've learned that old paradigm of abuse and chaos and torment was false. And
Mm,
that really what we share is, everyone, as you probably know, everyone who has a happy, long-lasting marriage truly does feel like their partner's their best friend. You have to have that friendship first and
yes.
foremost.
It's a friendship is such a wonderful foundation for a lifetime romance. I am so excited to witness the amazing growth that you have been through, and that you're now bringing to the world, these very painful lessons that you've learned with your books, your writing. I hope that everyone who's watching this video will please read the entire article. It's full of valuable information about Crystal's journey. Her blog is called Confidently Authentic, and you can reach her at healthyrelationshipfoundation.com. That's healthyrelationshipfoundation.com. Crystal, thank you so much for spending these few minutes with me and kind of amplifying a few of the answers that you hinted at in the article. I hope you continue your great contribution to the world. We need more and more people who decide to heal and pursue that path.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nancy. It's been a real joy being able to chat with you. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it too. So I hope that we someday get to meet in person. That would be a real pleasure.
That would be fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye.